What's it like in Bruges?
Comedy gold. All right.
Musty. Very, very musty.
Welcome to Bonehead Week.
And people jump out of bell towers for some reason.
What?
Are there a lot of bell towers in Belgium?
There's the one from the movie. It was a bell tower, right?
I don't know. That's a good movie.
Oh, that's a great, yeah.
Is that Martin McDonough?
Mm-hmm.
God, he never made a bad movie.
Nope. It just doesn't make a lot of them, which is why they're so good.
Just never. Anyway, we're Bonehead Weekly, and we're glad you tuned in or turned
Are
it
we?
on. Yeah,
Are we?
I am.
I am.
I am. I'm curious.
I have my doubts.
I'm curious why they hated high school films, gentlemen. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but
Because high school films suck.
No, it's because
pirate films, Chad, are more successful than high school.
You know why? You know what? Let me.
Audience.
Because
can
at
I
least
diagnose?
with the exception of the lack of scurvy, they're more believable.
Well, can I diagnose the problem with high school films too?
Sure.
It's the same. Joe knows the dialogue that we overheard or had said about before, but
holy shit, if I heard
it is high school films have to be so intense because the stakes are so low.
Right? James, speaking of quoting James, why do poor people? How are poor people able to stay thin?
That is because they can't afford diet soda. That's so. Yeah. How do they stay thin when they can't afford diet soda?
How do they afford to stay thin if they can't afford diet soda?
Oh God, that's
stuck in my brain.
Oh, it gets me. It scares
me. Or
me.
Abraham Lincoln was not the president during the Civil War, bro. I'm pretty sure you got that one wrong. That is also stuck in my brain all these years. So anyway, of course, we're talking about college at the moment. Well, today's topic is something that's near and dear to my heart. It really isn't, but there are several of these shows that
for a time for me it was because this is all I had.
Right?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say if you were a kid that didn't have satellite like Joe Louis.
No, and some of these are dear to my heart as we go through them, and there are still things that I watch. There's a 3 or 4 on here that I still watch repeatedly.
Oh, yeah.
I have a little bit of a cough. Forgive me. It's that time of the year. Anyway, we're talking about sitcoms and our favorite sitcoms.
Sorry, it's that time of the year. He has tuberculosis.
Yeah.
He went down to the marketplace and there were too many. I don't know what got I don't know. Sorry.
So Joe will be moving to Arizona next week.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll help.
But he will also. Well, I mean, I sorry, I could make a political joke here, but I'm not going to. Let's move on.
Yeah. You know what? I thought Kentucky was bad, and then there was Texas. And now, keep going. Who wants to go first talking about their favorite sitcom? Now, James.
Well, no, I actually have a question. Can I ask a question? Can I finish?
No one else.
Can I finish? 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 Can I finish?
You know how political timely humor.
Yeah, another one of those Dana Carvey bits that
I love
aged
Dana
so
Carvey.
well.
I love Dana Carvey. I you know what? More people know Admiral Stockdale because of Dana Carvey
than because of Admiral Stockdale.
Yeah.
But that being said, and Phil Hartman doing Admiral Stockdale. Anyway, but I've got a question. I mean this seriously because it's going to guide my answers for the show. When we talk about sitcom, are we talking traditional live action sitcom?
Yeah.
Or are we talking The Simpsons?
Yeah.
Because if you go ahead.
No, because I struggled with that with my list because there were several I could put on there, but I was like, no, I'm doing the traditional multicam record in front of a live studio audience, which
that removes a couple of mine if we're doing live studio audience.
You all can do whatever way you want it. It's just I made some rules for myself when I did this.
Did you guys Google some of the best ones? Because a lot of the list, I didn't. You know what the number one is?
The Simpsons.
The Simpsons.
Right? Yeah. But how could it not be? Because it has been everything at every time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the jokes that Simpsons have predicted everything. There's an entire South Park episode, right? Simpsons did it, but also how many times? I mean, there's the episode where Lisa becomes president, and there's a line: "How bad a situation are we in because of President Trump?" Right? I mean, and that was well before he was elected. I mean, so how could you not say the Simpsons?
At the time, it was just a joke.
Yeah, no, and that's just a limitation on me because I would have put Futurama would have been in the top 3 of my list.
Well, and Family Guy.
No, not so much the Family Guy for me.
Family Guy would be on there.
The Muppet Show would have been mine, even though I'm like, okay, there's some limitations for me, so I'd left those off the list for myself. That's the only limitation I did. Okay. I was like, I'm doing the traditional.
He left off the Muppet Show, but let me spoil the Muppets. Yeah. He's doing that one, that ABC show he's talking about.
I really did. I did the traditional multicam live studio audience.
So, no, that's the question I wanted to ask once we started to record, because it really does. I think the Simpsons are that show, and I love the fact that the Simpsons have lasted so long that their creators, the producers, and all that stuff come out online and say, well, what you have to keep in mind is that the canon is flexible. It has to be, right? Because when they do a flashback episode of when Marge and Homer were dating, it was originally set the late 60s, early 70s, and now it has to be set in the 80s or 90s for Bart and Lisa's age to make sense.
So
right?
so before we recorded, James, you were saying something about this might be hard for you. Is it because you don't like the traditional sense?
No. There's no. I love the Simpsons, but when I was trying to make my list, I kept going, oh, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And I can't do, and I will say this, mine is not arguably a best of list. It may not even be quote unquote my favorite, but it's the ones that it's the one that when you say sitcom, it's what pops into my head.
Yeah.
And the Simpsons for me doesn't pop into my head for sitcom because to me, it's a cultural touchstone, right? I mean, it has gone beyond everything. It's what we're 4 decades now that there's been a Simpson show. We're heading into over 30 years. It's hard for me to say that's just a sitcom.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of what again, it was just I wanted to do that approach to them because I just feel like most of them are timely. They don't age well, except for and honestly, 2 of mine I feel like have aged well. And I'll be honest with you, I'm usually the one, I come up with some obscure stuff. I did not come up with any obscure. I'm pretty sure if you Google the 3, they're going to be at the top of a lot of lists. But they just epitomize for me what a sitcom is. So that's just what I wanted to start with, because obviously for me, I mean, the ones that I watch consistently still to this day would be The Simpsons. I do watch Family Guy. I love Family Guy. But I love Family Guy because, of other reasons. But I wanted to say that up front because I think I'm going to leave those off, not because I don't love them, and I'm not restricting myself maybe as much as Chad is, but I want to talk about some other things. So sorry, I wanted to ask that question.
Well, who wants to go first, gentlemen?
I'll go first because I'm going to talk about the one that we've talked about repeatedly on the show.
Good. Finally, we're going to talk about Fred Savage's Working. Why didn't that get 18 seasons? By the way, that show was better than I had.
Is that the one with Rob Lowe?
I don't even remember, but what I loved about it was the corporation he worked for. Every time it would go to commercial, when it would come back from commercial, they would have a fake commercial for that company. And the one I remember is when they're doing a recruitment fair or something, and it's got all them working at their computers or at their desk and all that stuff. And it's like, whatever the corporation was, we hope you'll join us, because once you do, you'll never leave. You will never leave. You will stay here for eternity. You will always be here. You'll be one of us. And it was honestly, it got so dark that all the people at the desk slowly look over at the camera, and it was dark humor for a sitcom. So there, sorry.
No. So my first sitcom is going to be Night Court. It is still my favorite sitcom of all time. One of my favorite TV shows of all time, period.
Son of a bitch, you took one of mine.
I figured I was. It honestly, it still holds up to this day. I watched a few episodes just to remind myself. And full disclosure, I have marathoned every episode of this show at least 3 times.
I'm sorry, I zoned out. What are you talking about? I really did. I'm sorry.
Night Court.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I'm back with you. That's good.
Dick.
No, I really did. I zoned out for the 2 seconds he said the name of the show, and then I came back and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what he's talking about, and I'm afraid they're going to ask me something that I won't know. I'm sorry, I have issues. I have not caffeinated enough today.
It's okay. No, I have seriously. I've marathoned this show at least 3 times. I marathoned it when I was a kid because I never watched it. I until the final season. It came on at 9:00 on NBC. I watched it in syndication. It was 7:00 every night. During the week, I would watch every single episode for me in syndication. Go ahead, James. Did you say something? Did you have something to say?
Well, I was going to say, aren't they doing a reboot? Is that still going to happen?
I don't know. Yeah, it's supposed to be happening. Yeah.
I mean, and by the way, that's one I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot, even though sadly most of the cast has passed on. Well, 50% of the cast has passed on.
They passed on the project.
Yes, we'll say that.
They passed on the project in that they are dead and would not show up for
2021 really did suck. But it sucked particularly because we lost Marky Post and Charles Robinson in 1 year and very close to one another. And it was just heartbreaking for me. I talked about this at the end of the episode where we talked about Betty White. They hit me hard because they really were a big piece of my childhood and they're gone. But Night Court was created by Reinhold Weege. He actually wrote on 105 of the 193 episodes that was made, which I find that very impressive.
I do. Can I pause for you for 1 second?
Yeah.
You remember the episode where they make fun of learning the one guy's name and it's Reinhold?
Yeah.
Sorry. It's stuck in my head all these years.
Isn't that Dan's name? It's Dan's real name.
It is. Dan's real name is Reinhold. I couldn't remember which one, but yes.
Yeah, it's Dan Fielding, played by John Larroquette.
Dan Fielding.
Dan Fielding.
It starred Harry Anderson, John Larroquette, Richard Mole, Marky Post, Charles Robinson, and Marsha Warfield. If you don't know it, it was focused on a youthful judge, Harry T. Stone, who at the time, the whole thing was he was the youngest judge ever assigned. And it's actually based on reality. So it takes place in New York, and New York in the show, New York was in a dire need to get judges. So they were basically giving out judge jobs to anybody who would take them. This actually happened in California. Mm-hmm. And the reason he got the job is he's actually the only one who answered the phone that night.
I was going to say, I'm like, do you remember how he got the job? Because I remember that episode so well. It's like, oh, I answered the phone.
Yeah, he answered the phone. That's the only reason he got the job. And anyway, he's assigned to Night Court in New York. And it's him trying to control all of the zany characters that are coming in and out of that show, out of that courtroom. Did you know Reinhold's first writing gig was, Joe? Did you look this up?
No, I didn't.
It's this might be on your list, and if it is, I'm not trying to take it. You can reach it, but it's Barney Miller.
Barney Miller is on my list, but I don't think I'm going to use it.
Yeah, he wrote for his first writing gig was with Barney Miller.
That makes sense,
and it makes sense. And you really see that. And I didn't realize it until I read up on this. You can really see a lot of Barney Miller in those first two seasons.
Yeah.
I don't think Night Court really got into its groove of what it was until the third season, which I'm getting ready to get into. Basically because if you're not familiar, the first two seasons, it was crazy on Night Court. They were in and out of people taking jobs. Like the people were leaving the show left and right. Somebody died even, and they had to replace her.
Why was there so much turmoil in the first two seasons?
The lady who was playing Charles Robinson's character,
yeah,
she left because she was trying to get better jobs. It was basically, there was no room for her character to move on, so she left. And then the attorney who Marky Post took over, who left, again, she got another offer, which obviously didn't pan out.
Well, and I was going to say, and it wasn't a breakout hit per se, right? Like it didn't hit the ground and all of a sudden have huge ratings.
I don't know that it was ever a huge hit. I think it was just always one of those. Probably
it was solid.
It was solid. Yeah. Yeah, it was solid. It was never a hit, and it was a hit. Yes, it was. Yes, it went into syndication. People loved it.
Yeah,
but it was again. It was just one of those. We're here. We're doing good. Yeah. And if you remember, John Larroquette actually won 4 primetime Emmys for his role. He actually ended up having to stop accepting nominations because he wanted to leave he wanted other people to get that award.
But has there ever been, and there has been, but I mean, there are so few folks who are ever more adept or better cast than he was in that role.
No argument. Yeah.
Right?
He went from being the narrator for Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
and he's the narrator of the new one. If you watch it,
yeah, to which I haven't. I can't make myself.
Oh my god,
I have no desire.
I've not heard great things.
It's dreadful.
But no,
check out my review.
But yeah, Night Court often walked the line between lunacy and reality, and its edginess pushed the envelope of network television at the time, which is one thing it doesn't get credit for. Because at that time, Cosby was at the top of the charts, and here comes this weird show about people coming in as nudists, all kinds of craziness.
Well, and I was about to say, and the guest stars that were on Night Court. I mean, Mel Torme, being Mel Torme, and Harry being obsessed with Mel Torme, John Aston, Jim Varney, Brent Spiner. Brent Spiner, known by most people as Data from Star Trek: The Next. His character on Night Court is right up there with the Darlings from Andy Griffith Show. Just nails this weird vibe.
James, help me. Oh God, I'm blanking. Silent Mark's brother.
Chico?
Chico had a guest appearance on the show.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. God.
Oddly enough, why don't it shut up?
Yeah. But no, I love this show. I could never miss an episode. And honestly, the cast that it's known for didn't come together until the 4th season. Yeah. Marsha Warfield did not get cast until the 4th season.
Oh, I know. Because it wasn't until the 4th season. I didn't remember.
Yeah. So the first 2 seasons, there was one character, the other bailiff. She was this short old lady who clearly she died. And then for season 3, they replaced her with a character similar to her. Yeah. Short, funny voice, which they actually brought up in the season opener of season 3. By the way, God, I am such a Dirk. If you want to see Richard Mole, how talented he is, watch episode 1, season 3, where he goes into an absolute depression about that lady dying. It breaks your heart. It does. But they replaced it with her, and then she died at the end of that season. And then they said, maybe we should cast somebody younger. So they casted Marsha Warfield. And then that's when the show really hit the ground running, in my opinion.
And by the way, if you don't follow Marsha Warfield on Twitter, you're missing out. Absolute blast to follow.
Marsha Warfield is a great act. Again, one of those people who is kind of forgotten, but she was great.
Oh yeah.
DC Cab, baby.
That's a movie that has not aged well.
No, it hasn't. But no, I mean, there was plenty of great episodes about Night Court. I just loved every minute of it. Some of my favorite episodes. And again, you watch it, they do repeat the same story season to season. I mean, they're trying to fill a 22 episode.
How many seasons were there?
9.
Oh my God, I didn't realize it ran 9.
It's 8 or 9.
But Chad, and I'm not defending them per se, but isn't that what court is, right?
Yes, I mean, exactly.
How often do you have to hear, quote unquote, the same trial, same
James,
case?
We haven't been to court as many times as you.
Okay, James. But
because you don't show up when I have my lawyer summon you, Joe, doesn't mean that you didn't. You don't have to go to court.
Court dates were missed.
9 seasons, Joe. 9 seasons, Joe. It ran from 19.
It ran in 9 seasons.
Yeah, it closed. I think its last season was in. Let me check. 1992. It ran from 1984 to 1992. Oh. James, I'm just going to give you an example, and then we can move on, because I could talk about Night Court for a whole hour, and nobody wants to hear me talk about Night Court for a whole hour. There was one ongoing story that happened almost every season where they had somebody who had a major event that it was getting ready to happen, but they were stalled in court because their case was at the bottom of the pile, and by some rule, Harry couldn't put the case in front of all the other ones. They had to go in a specific order. So now they had to go through every single case, which was like 90 something cases, 50 something cases, to get to that one case. At least 4 episodes were dedicated to that storyline.
I didn't realize it was that many.
It's 3 or 4 at least. I need to do it. But yeah, it happened. Like there was the one about the bride, the guy who had to get to the bride. And then she was going to leave him. And then he said, "Oh, I have it anyway."
Yeah.
Actually, and then they tried Wile E. Coyote, for God's sakes, in one of those episodes.
Oh, I think it's not court. There's a great Star Trek reference where they go in and it's the original series fans are fighting with the Next Generation fans.
Sounds right.
And they have a fight, and literally at one point, the Next Generation fans say, "We don't have to take this," and they teleport out. The transporter takes them, and the original series fan goes, "Oh yeah, sure, but can he do this?" And does a Vulcan salute, and then Harry just goes, "Dismissed." I mean, what are you gonna do? But yeah, it was a great show.
Yeah, if you just have to watch it, if you haven't, you can watch it for free on Amazon now. Go for it.
I'm going to start over. All right, I'm going to go next.
I'm kind of curious where you're going to go.
What'd you say?
I'm curious where you're going to go.
Well, there's 3 that I'm having a hard
time. The hell if he don't change his ways.
There's 3 that I'm having a hard time with, Chad. So the issue is this, what I'm going to pick isn't my favorite sitcom. I don't know that I have a favorite, because almost everything on here, if it's on, I'll stop and watch it. But damn, it's so hard for me to skip the Golden Girls.
No, you shouldn't.
It's just ahead of its freaking time. That's the reason why we're still talking about the Golden Girls.
At some point in time, guys, I need to go back and watch it.
But
Golden Girls.
Let's hold on. I'm not. Well, give me a second.
Okay.
I don't, Chad. I think a lot of people don't remember Night Court as well.
I agree.
But I am not going to sit here and describe the Golden Girls because, by God, it is still all a part of the zeitgeist.
Yep.
Am I wrong?
No, you're right. You're right.
It
No,
has
no.
got to leave.
Yeah.
And I watched it as a kid, didn't get most of the jokes. We've talked about it on here several times. I just
Night Court, Golden Girls wasn't reduced to being sold at the spinny bin of a Cracker Barrel. Night Court was.
But people love the Golden Girls. It's still on Lifetime on a Saturday morning, and it's harder to do since I've had a kid. But one of my favorite things was to either be on vacation or here on a Saturday. I remember going on vacation and catch it in the afternoon, taking a nap, and then going out to dinner after going to the beach. It's comfort food. The jokes still land for the most part. I can't, it's just ahead of its time. And it is aged for the most part,
That's me.
most part really well.
Let's agree.
James,
Out of
what
the three of us, it's me.
Most
Yeah.
part.
Most part.
You would win that. James.
Yay! I win something.
Well, no, I mean, but the Golden Girls also just has that. I mean, I think it's stuck around because it's oddly empowering. I mean, they are, there aren't a lot of shows that are about older women unless they're detectives or they solve mysteries, right?
I mean,
you get
I
Miss
think-
Marple and
I think
stuff like
people,
that.
I think your average teenager would know the Golden Girls before they know All in the Family.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I agree. All in the Family.
I may be
mean,
wrong.
No,
They
I don't
damn
think
sure
so.
know it before they know Maude.
Oh yeah, Maude. By the way, I love Maude. But yeah, no, I think
I
but
prefer the
Golden,
squad version.
yeah, I'm sure you do. But Golden Girls, it did episodes that were All in the Family-esque. There's a great episode where Rose may have AIDS, right?
Yeah. And there's an episode where Blanche's daughter decides that she doesn't want to get married and have a child to the traditional way. She wants to go to a sperm bank. There's an episode that deals with the whole time in the show, Dorothy's brother is a cross-dresser. The whole time through the show, oh my God, I'm trying to think of another good one. Rose falls in love with a small person.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love her back.
Yeah.
The whole joke towards the end of this. I mean, they were tackling shit. Forget the LGBTQ issues that were addressed throughout this, where there was different romances of, well, no, she's not that, but we're going to accept and blah, 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 blah. And this was all during the 80s and Reagan on a Saturday night. And it was a hot ass show.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
When people actually stayed in on a Saturday night to watch TV. Can you imagine? Well, I
Yeah.
can now. They just stream. They watch it. They watch 3 seasons of The Sopranos now is the way they watch television. Yeah, the episodes still hold up for the most part. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're not all winners, guys. And it's not all cheesecake. And there is so many. And Chad, you're talking about reusing the same damn story 500
Yeah.
times. Oh, there's very few that are bigger offenders than the Golden Girls of, oh, do you remember when we're sitting around with a cheesecake and they do a flashback episode? There's
Yeah.
a dozen of those. There's a dozen. Has to be.
I just want to know why they didn't do a spinoff where we follow the adventures of Stanley.
Yeah, no. Oh, hey, it's me, Stan.
Yeah.
Her ex-husband, wonderful. Anyway, I love.
Can I take a quick break? Because now I just got to jump in real quick. I now am having to do research on Marks that was in Night Court. He died in the 60s.
Yeah. I
Right.
thought.
But I
yeah.
didn't want to argue with you because I thought maybe I was wrong about something.
So now I got to figure out which actor
Was it Chico? There's Harpo, Groucho, obviously.
Groucho,
died.
Harpo, Chico.
And
I
then
don't
the,
know.
the younger one, which was Zeppo. And there was a fifth one too, but nobody remembers him at all.
Horror.
They all died in the 60s. What the hell was I on?
I don't know. I was a little bit confused, but I was like, well, maybe.
No,
'cause
actually,
Al-
Somebody
Groucho
correct.
lived to
God forbid
77.
somebody correct me. Yeah. What?
Groucho lived to 77. You're not even right about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
fuck it.
Yeah, sorry. I
Right?
do cocaine. Oh, that's we should have known that though, because he's in what, Joe?
Groucho?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's in Skidoo, but
Skidoo,
the reason you know how I can
Skidoo.
remember is that line from The Devil's Rejects when they bring in the movie experts, and he goes, "And he died the same week of Elvis, and Elvis took away all of Groucho's headlines."
just like Lonnie Anderson did to Meatloaf.
Lonnie Anderson didn't die.
No, I didn't mean Lonnie Anderson. What's that other guy that did die?
I don't know. Bob Saget.
No.
Why don't you give us a sitcom, because we've done and went and played out the Golden Girls.
Okay. I'm going to go with the one that you've already alluded to. I have to say All in the Family. All in the Family. I own the complete series.
Oh,
I
it's
wish
good.
that
It's
I
another
wish they-
one where the episode or the topics just hold up.
Well, I was going to say, I wish they would bring out Archie Bunker's Place, the spinoff, because that has the episode that I think is one of the most effective All in the Family episodes, even though it's not All in the Family, it's Archie Bunker's Place, where Edith dies. That episode, if you can watch that without having an emotional response on some level, I don't know, something.
I can safely.
Death
I've
and
actually
Edith's
never seen
rape,
that
by
one.
the way.
Yeah, that one was rough to watch.
Yep.
But All in the Family is, I mean, if you like Family Guy, you're watching All in the Family, right? I mean, it is.
Yep.
But it works so well. And if you examine it, why it was such a big hit, books were coming out called The Wit and Wisdom of Archie Bunker, because a lot of people, Nixon was a fan, and he said, "Oh, we need more Archie Bunkers." But at the same time, if you were liberal, you watched it because to you, Archie Bunker was a moron.
And he is.
He is.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because
He's a
I'm a liberal.
big-hearted moron.
Yeah, like he
He gets
means,
so many words wrong.
Yeah.
and he means well, but he's bigoted. He's unaware. And so
He's willfully.
and then, but
Go ahead.
well, but the other side of it is Meathead, his nephew, would go on to be Rob Reiner. But anyway, he also is stupid though, right? I mean, because he goes too far the other way.
He goes too far the other way. He's not as dedicated. He doesn't have the work ethic that his father-in-law has. And they kind of touch on this in the show where they finally move out. And Mike is thanking him because, who would have done that for somebody?
Yeah. And I mean, but he is, and he refers to Mike as Meathead. That he never, it's very rarely he actually calls him by his name.
Yeah.
And Meathead, he's dead from the neck up. But there's so many great weird episodes. Some of them are of their time. One episode that I absolutely love, and if you go back and look at this, it's true. Beef was too expensive for most people to eat, and in the state of New York, you weren't allowed to sell. There was a law at the time that said you had to sell. It had to be beef, pork, turkey, it was a finite list. But over in New Jersey, they actually, and this is true, they were selling horse meat.
Yep.
And Edith has to go over because Archie wants meat, so she has to go get horse meat and pretend it's beef. And Mike finds out and keeps making jokes about it while they're at the dinner table, and it's hilarious. But at the same time, when it was true, they couldn't afford it. Meat got overly expensive, the inflation and everything that was happening at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of the stuff that happened, I think that with Nixon became fodder for the show. And this show was highly controversial at the time. Matter of fact, they've done a few live ones recently where they've had different people play.
Right.
Who played Archie? Zombieland.
Carol Connor.
No, Zombieland. Who played in the live action ones they did recently?
I was about to say it and I forgot. Cheers. Why can't I think of
Woody Harrelson?
Woody Harrelson played it. And it was so funny because I was watching it, and it's when they do these live, there's certain words they have to edit or beep out.
Yep.
And it's also a sign of the times of what gets beeped, but what doesn't get beeped back. For instance, Jamie Foxx played Sanford.
Yep.
Not Sanford. I screwed that up. No, he played Jefferson.
He played Jefferson.
And he can say cracker. That doesn't get beeped, but Archie's response has to be beeped.
Yep.
And it's not beeped in the original airing. And it used to, when it was originally aired, there was a little screen that popped up, kind of like what South Park does now, where it said, this is a portrait of one American family. We hope you'll laugh at it. We hope you'll enjoy it, but they are going to be what an American family is. Or I'm not getting the exact wording right, but it was, I mean, everything about it, from Edith being told to stifle, but also while everybody looks at it and be like, well, Edith's dumb. No, Edith wins out more often than
Well,
not.
Edith is the heart of the show.
Yeah.
She's his conscience.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's episodes, but it also works. Everybody talks about Archie Bunker, but that show doesn't work without that ensemble. It doesn't. I mean, even when they move out,
Yeah.
it is stronger the stronger that ensemble is, because I don't think anybody else could have played Meathead the way. Matter of fact, I know they couldn't, because they did a pilot originally without Sally Struther and without Rob Reiner, and it didn't go over as well.
Right.
But once you got the right cast together, but that is a show that, again, I mean, Simpsons has used the opening theme song and updated it. Family Guy has used it. That is a touchstone. The Archie Bunker's chair is in the Smithsonian.
Right.
Yep.
That is a cultural touchstone show, but I can still watch it. Not every single episode is a winner, but I laugh at something in every episode, even if it's just a chuckle, because it is an American family. It is. And at the time, yeah, some things are dated, but the idea of the struggle of the American family and not agreeing with your family, but still trying to do right by everybody. There is something timeless about All in the Family. I love All in the Family. Plus, to be honest, I would go ahead and say maybe the only modern parallel we still have working would be Chuck Lorre, because Norman Lear created an empire. Yeah. All in the Family led to Jeffersons and Maude and Good Times and what else? So many spinoffs of that universe.
Right.
Before Marvel Comics did it in movies, Norman Lear was doing it on your television set, kids.
Chad.
Okay, so in fairness, the person who I thought was Harpo, that I mistook for Harpo Marx in my brain,
yeah,
Shelley Berman.
Not
that's way off. like you told us you were going to take us to a Mets game, but you somehow took us to the Dodgers. I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah, this is why I don't ever go off the cuff. Read the notes, Chad. Read the notes. So again, this is not going to be a shocker to any list or any obscure. Married with Children. Love the show.
Do you actually watch it though now?
No, full disclosure, it's one of those shows that I don't think aged very well.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, but when I was a kid, I loved this show. It had a lot of impact on me. Again, I think it actually aired right after Night Court at 7:30 in syndication. That's how I got introduced to it, and it was a staple. It was just the reason why I liked Married with Children is it was the anti-sitcom. It was much even All in the Family. It wasn't the perfect family, but it still had those heartfelt moments. Married with Children, hardly ever. It was all of them hate each other.
And the only time they got together is if somebody else messed with them. The only time they agreed was, okay, we can screw with each other and we can hate each other, but if you as an outsider hate us, we will wreck your
Al
world.
Will come and beat the shit out of you.
Yeah.
And I loved every minute of it. Now that being said, I agree with Joe. It does not age well, but there are still episodes that I can watch where I still get a chuckle out of it. But yeah, a lot of it just, it sadly falls short. It was created by Ron Leavitt and Michael G. Moya. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. It starred Ed O'Neill, Katie Seagal, Christina Applegate, Davis Faustino, Amanda Bierce, Ted McGinley, and David Garrison. David Garrison was actually in the first few seasons. He got replaced by Ted McGinley because David Garrison wanted to go focus on theater. I didn't know this. This was Fox's first primetime television show.
I did know that, actually.
I did
and
know that.
It was a major hit right out the gate.
I didn't know it was a major hit right out the gate.
Yeah, I didn't know this either until I started doing research. Every site I went to, it was a mega hit for them. Fox just hit the ground running. Now, depending on this,
didn't it even become a bigger hit though when it got controversial? Am I wrong about that? Okay.
Yeah. Now there was one source that said it was so successful that they aired it repeatedly that night over and over again. I don't think that's true. Fox had just started out. They did not have a whole lot of programming. So what they did the first night it aired, they aired it at 7, Tracy Ullman at 7:30, Married with Children again at 8, Tracy Ullman at 8:30, Married with Children at 9, Tracy Ullman at 9:30. Now, some sites claimed it was so successful that Fox just decided to keep looping it. I don't think that's how programming and ratings worked at the time in the early 80s. I just think they were low on content. Because
that's accurate. I'm almost positive that sounds accurate. It would be the one, wouldn't be the other. They wouldn't even know. They wouldn't have even got it.
You wouldn't get the dailies, right?
Yeah, they had to get. They had to go to the Nelson boxes at people's houses. I mean, there was no rating systems. Were not that fast in the day. And if you don't know Married with Children, it follows an angry women's shoe salesman,
who scored 6 touchdowns at Polk High.
But Ed O'Neill actually did play football, was fairly successful, and played for the Steelers. Well, he didn't make the team, but he played for Chuck Noll and with Terry Bradshaw for the Steelers. He and Terry Bradshaw have been friends for 50 years.
And what I didn't know either,
he didn't make the team though.
And I didn't know a couple of days. I didn't know this either till last year when I heard an episode of Gilbert Gottfried's podcast that motherfucker knows Taekwondo. Black belt.
I've never listened to him on that. I have to go check that one out.
Guys, I may be Mark Maron. My brain is fluctuating again. But yeah, he's a black belt. He's an expert. He's been doing it since the show. And apparently there's videos out there of him doing it. I want to look them up and see what he can do. But yeah, and again, he doesn't particularly care for his family. His wife is a stay-at-home. She eats bonbons and watches TV, has really high hair. His daughter is very promiscuous, and his son is the exact opposite of that. He likes to pretend that he can be, but he can't even. It's just,
what's his alternate identity that he develops?
It's a rapper of some
kind.
A
rapper. Oh, I can't remember.
Blanking.
I love those episodes though.
But yeah, there's plenty of episodes where like Al he forms a noose as he's coming down the stairs.
Yeah. No, it's actually I use this line all the time on my wife, and it comes from that show. But it's one of my favorite lines. I thought it was hilarious when I saw it on the show when I was probably 13 or 14, and I've used it several times since then. And it's where Al comes home. I think it's in the episode or something. He's having to work double shifts for some reason, and he comes home and Peg's on the couch, and he opens the door. And he says, feed me or feed me to something. I just want to be part of the food chain again. I have used that on my wife 1,000 times. And she tells me to go make something in the kitchen. I know how the kitchen works. But the point being, some of the writing on that show was phenomenal.
I agree.
And some of it sucks, though, guys.
Yeah, I agree too.
It's listen, it's like the Andy Griffith Show. We can all quote some episodes, but if we had to watch all of them back to back to back to back, we'd probably lose our temper eventually.
Actually, I don't know. Andy Griffith's on my list, but I don't know if it's going to be my next one.
No, and then the main reason I like the show again is because it was called the I always considered it, even then, it was the anti-Cosby show. Cosby was very, bubblegum. Vanilla, I guess I should say. Probably wrong with this word to describe that show, but it was everything was happy, everything was wholesome.
He would put you to sleep.
Yeah. But the Married with Children was the exact opposite.
Get a bigger laugh out there in the audience. I guess they can't hear their feedback though, can we?
But but the thing about that is, Chad, and I can remember, like, it was also the promiscuous show, right? Like my parents. It was the one thing that they were like, we really don't like you watching that. Now we'll let you.
Well, that's the thing. But every episode, almost every episode, there would be this amazingly stunning, gorgeous woman, and Al would just be like, just want to, but he just can't.
Well, and there was an episode that never aired, right?
Yes.
And it was about a sex tape.
Is that what it was? I was trying to do research on it.
They accidentally filmed Marcy, and I don't think it was Jefferson. I think it was before Jefferson came on her first husband. And they accidentally filmed them and they watched the tape, Al and Peg do, and they're going to submit it or something. And something actually happened in the news where Fox was like, we can't air that.
Yeah.
We can't. That's too close to something that actually happened.
And do you know the working title of the show when it was in production for the first season?
No.
Not the Cosbys.
But you know what? Also, though, why I remember Married with Children?
Why?
That opening, the song, which
No,
is not.
Love and
I mean,
Marriage.
Love and Marriage obviously has nothing to do with Married with Children. They just happened to option that song.
I will say, when I was actually able to go to Chicago in my 20s and I saw the fountain,
yeah,
I just sit there and stared and giggled.
Yeah,
it just made me think of Married with Children. One of my favorite episodes involved Sam Kinison. It was the exact opposite of A Wonderful Life.
Yeah, where if he would be dead, it would have been better.
Yeah, if he would have been dead, everybody was happier. Everybody was well off. The kids were fine. His wife, Peggy, was very, very happy. And then Al says, and Sam Kinison's going, I guess I'm not getting my wings. Why did I do this? And Al looks at him and goes, they're happy. Screw them. I want my life back. I want to make them miserable.
Yeah.
It is just the weirdest. You didn't see that, and you have a hard time seeing that. If it's just great. And there are episodes again that I love. Again, I agree with Joe, but again, it's a 24 episode formatted show that ran for over. I think this one ran for 10 seasons, guys.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I thought it ran longer than that.
It might have, but it was Fox was holding on. They moved it all over the place. Whenever they had a slot where they were struggling, they put Married with Children there.
Well,
and then they finally killed it when it went to Sunday.
And in some ways, it was very Simpson-esque in that.
No, 10 years, Joe.
It didn't make any sense in some ways. What they were like, there's an episode where they go to England and they find out that the Bundy family is cursed, literally cursed.
11 seasons.
11,
yeah.
But I just remember that because it was event TV when they went to England. And if you stop to think about it, how does a shoe salesman on his income go to England? It didn't matter. And they also in that episode used it was a 2-part episode, and they used Right Said Fred's "I'm Too Sexy." I remember it all.
The one bit that I felt never landed, and they kept going back to it, and even to this day, was it No Ma'am?
No Ma'am. Yeah, his organization.
Yeah, that was one of those bits that they just kept going back to, that I just could never get into. Sorry.
And the nudie bar one, it doesn't work for me either.
Yeah.
Not that I'm talking about in the show, although I haven't been to a strip club in 15 years, but
Chad.
Yeah.
It was Grandmaster B.
Grandmaster B. Oh man, I forgot about Grandmaster B.
That was Bud Bundy's alternate rap identity, Grandmaster B.
Yeah, they did some weird thing. Like, Peggy got pregnant and then all of a sudden she's not pregnant and they never even back to it. And then they even brought number 7 in. Does anybody remember? And then they were like, he's going to be the new kid. And then they realized it wasn't working. So he just disappeared. They never caught.
Is the truth behind that though, as far as her being pregnant, and then she was pregnant in real life?
She was pregnant in real life.
Yeah. Didn't she lose the child? I may be misremembering that. But I think that's one of the reasons they wrote out her having a child on the show.
I didn't look into that.
I may be wrong. I could be completely wrong, but.
And now I got to go back and look at this episode because I've forgotten all about it. Al Bundy, shoe dick. Sorry.
All right. We ready to move on?
Move on.
All right. Mine is, I'm afraid it's starting to. So I was going to pick Andy, but I'm not, because I think people still remember Andy Griffith. I think people still
obviously not people that watch our show. If you remember, we tried to do a sketch once and everybody's like, what the hell's that from?
What the hell was that?
And if you want to go look at one of the episodes where these guys just trash me, go look at the episode where I said with things that didn't go
overrated shows.
Yeah, overrated shows.
Yeah, no,
I'm going to keep my mouth out of this one, guys.
Well, no, I get it, but it's back to staples. It was one in my house. I still love it. I still pick certain shows, and if it's a Barney heavy episode, it plays just as well now as it did 50 years. And by the way, Don Knotts won 4, if not 5 Emmys going back to.
He won 1 for appearing in a guest star, right?
Yeah.
After he left, he came back and did 1 episode, and they're like, "What? Just going to take this Emmy."
We got to figure out who was Sheldon. Was that guy? Didn't he win multiple ones?
Sheldon Leonard,
the guy from Big Bang, didn't he win multiple Oscar Emmys?
Maybe. I don't know.
I'm sure. I would think.
It's not Jim Cummings. It's Jim Backus.
Parsons.
That's what I said.
Jim
Jim Backus. All right. So this is one.
Jim Parsons. Jim Parsons, for those that you don't know, is also in the Muppet movie, The Muppets.
I am afraid is going to get lost to time, and it's sad because it's probably starred one of the greatest American comedians, naturally funny people of all time, and it's Sanford and Son with Red Fox.
Yeah.
Sanford and Son was based on a British show. It was another one of those Norman Lear British knockoffs, like All in the Family is based on I forgot the name.
Till Death Do We Part.
Till
Death Do We Part.
It's based on a British show.
Yeah,
right?
and Sanford and Son was with Now and Son.
Steptoe and Son.
Steptoe and Son. Sorry, with
Steptoe and Son.
Yeah.
Red Fox, one of the most natural blue comedians of all time, played a junk dealer. Red played this 20 years past his age. He was nowhere near. He played it perfectly because he was not that age. In fact, I think Red Fox went in his 60s in the 90s, and he was playing in his 60s in the 70s. He was in his 40s. And he had a son played by Desmond Wilson, and he's a widower. He's a widow, and they run if you've never seen Sanford and Son, I feel like, and I know why Chad explained Night Court but some of these shows, I was like, damn it, if you're listening to this, I don't know these, I feel bad for you, but I'll give you a little Sanford and Son.
But Sanford and Son he ran a junk shop or
he ran a junk shop,
but it's not really about the junk shop.
It's not about the junk shop. It's about him and his son getting along because his son lives there. His son has aspirations, but he's not overly bright either, and sometimes makes really bad decisions. And the son and the father's love is actually probably what keeps the show together for the most part. Although that kind of peters out in the last few seasons. You can pretty much tell. I was watching one a few months back where Desmond Wilson's up Lamont on the stage. And I thought, dude, you're just showing up. You're just showing up, hitting your mark, smiling.
It lasted 6 seasons, which isn't as long as All in the Family or any of those. But yeah.
You think it's, and actually they did another season where they didn't have Desmond Wilson and there was a white guy that was a beard. Remember? They lived with him.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that may get lost to time. I don't hear it as much. It also has a great theme song by Quincy Jones. Was that that's Quincy Jones and Red Fox? If you do yourself a favor, so if you can ever find, what's Super Dave's real name? Bob Einstein.
Einstein, yeah.
Find any
brother of Albert Brooks.
Find any podcast where Bob Einstein talks about writing for Sanford and Son and dealing with Red Fox. And not in a bad way. He doesn't remember him in a bad way. He remembers him. It's just Red and the shit he would do and how you probably wouldn't get away with a lot of it now because there's a camera up your ass every time you turn around a corner. But if you do yourself a favor and read some stuff about Red Fox. Actually, I think Red knew Malcolm X. They actually worked in the kitchen together.
Yes.
I don't know why I know that.
And Malcolm called him and Malcolm would say he was too dirty.
Yeah.
He couldn't be around him because he was so filthy.
Yeah. Red Fox.
Do you think one of the reasons Sanford and Son works so has a lot to do with Sanford has a perfect foil in Aunt Esther?
Yeah, and she was fantastic. And they would do shows together in Vegas.
Yeah.
So Red did Vegas for 30 years and he would do late night shows, Triple X theaters, and that's what he would do. And she would actually do it. And I cannot remember Aunt Esther, the actress's name.
I don't know, but one of the greatest lines between the two of them is when she yells at him because he's insulting her appearance, and she yells at him, "My body was blessed by Mother Nature, honey," and Sanford yells back, "And as you get older, it's been cursed by Father Time."
LaWanda Page.
Yeah, she's a fantastic comedian as well. There's some great lines. There's a great stories. A lot of it deals with race. Same time, a lot like Good Times. Only I think, to me, Sanford and Son was always far funnier than Good Times because the Good Times was slightly more serious, but the issues are the same. And I can't do, honest to God, back to words we can't say that would be beeped out now. They were in the show. Like he'd been in a court saying there's.
Well, in all fairness, you would have to beep them out.
Yeah, I'm not going to beep them out. So I'm not going to say them. I'm just never going to say it. but there's more people in here than a Tarzan film. In fact, most of the times when it goes into when they re-show it because of syndication, they cut the line out. It's one of the funniest damn things ever. Another one was where the police gets robbed. Were these, and they're asking, were they of color? Yeah, they were white. I mean, there's just shit in the show that was so ahead of its time, which was true of most Norman Lears. But I'm afraid Sanford and Son is one of those. There was Chris Rock tells a story about when he was really hot in the early 2000s. There's a studio executive met with him and he said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do Sanford and Son as a movie. And he said, you're an idiot. And the reason you're an idiot is because that show may have been called Sanford and Son. It was the Red Fox show.
Yeah.
And by the way, he had another one where he's a mail carrier that he died on. It was actually a pretty good show, but it unfortunately didn't go as far because
I don't think I ever saw that one.
Oh yeah.
It was a hit.
Well,
he had a hit show when he died. He died on set.
But they weren't necessarily.
They thought he was taking a heart attack.
Yeah, according to some people, they didn't exactly treat him well though on that show. That they reminded him that this was kind of his option, and I've heard that before. But by the way, I just want to do one more line between the father and son. Fred Sanford says, "I still have some wild oats I want to sow." Lamont, his son, responds, "At your age, you don't have no wild oats. You've just got shredded wheat."
Yeah, because Lamont was in his late 30s. Even in the show, he was still at home with his dad in his late 30s. And oh my God. And he made some fun. Oh shit. The Puerto Rican that lived next door that was played by the great character actor, I can't remember. Oh, the jokes. The jokes, they're awful, but hilarious. All right. Who's next?
James.
That's me. So you talked about Golden Girls. I talked about All in the Family. I want to talk about the intersection of two of them because Golden Girls was created by Susan Harris. Now, for those that don't know, Susan Harris probably deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as Norman Lear.
Yeah.
Chose people because she wrote for All in the Family, Love American Style, The Partridge Family. She wrote the TV adaptation of Neil Simon's Barefoot in the Park. Her abortion episode of Maude came out before Roe v. Wade.
Yep.
I mean, she was hitting all these things. She went on to create Faye, the show I'm going to talk about, which I'll get to in a minute. Loves Me, Loves Me Not, Benson, It Takes Two, The Golden Girls, Empty Nets, Nurses, Good and Evil, The Golden Palace, and The Secret Lives of Men. I want to talk about soap.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're about to talk about something you take in the shower with you. Chad, this is your point to say something. Left you open, bud.
I will say this in relation to that. I keep looking at a glance and forgetting James is wearing a Homer Simpson shirt.
I am. Yeah.
I keep taking a look and thinking it's either a penis or a middle finger.
For you, it's both.
Yeah.
But
Soap is another one that I think is forgotten.
Yep.
The Soap was great because, and I'll be honest, I didn't see it obviously when it originally aired. I don't remember seeing it when it originally aired. It aired from 77 to 81. I was been an infant at near the end of its show. But I caught it when, for a while, before Comedy Central had its own material, or a lot of its own material, it would pick up sitcoms, and it ran Soap from beginning to end. And Soap is exactly what you would imagine. It is a sitcom that makes fun of soap operas, and it covered everything you would expect to pop up in soap operas, from organized crime to amnesia to communism to alien or to demonic possession. And it is most famous now. As a matter of fact, actually, once again, Family Guy makes fun of this. Family Guy, anytime it does a two-parter, not anytime, a couple times when it's done two-parter, it will come back and it will have the last week on Family Guy. And the last time they did that, they did it soap style, and it ended with, will modern audience get our soap references? Probably not. This week on Family Guy, right? I mean, I love Seth MacFarlane because I think we grew up watching the same reruns. But it ran for 4 seasons. Again, if you watch any episode of it, you're going to go, oh, that guy, or that person. They did tons of other shows. It's about 2 dueling families.
Richard Mulligan's in that as well, right?
Yeah.
Richard Mulligan.
Yeah. It starred Catherine Hellman, Catherine Damon as sisters and matriarchs of their own families, which the families are always bouncing off of each other. Robert Mandan, Mary Stewart, just a ton of other people. It during the first season, it did really well. It obviously fell off over time. It did run till 81. There was a lot of controversy around the show because of basically certain affiliates of ABC were not wanting to run it.
Yeah.
It was, well, I'll just quote, "Soap promises to be the most controversial network series of the coming season, a show so saturated with sex that it could replace violence as the PTA's video enemy number one." We watch it now, and you're not going to be shocked by anything. I don't think. Joe, I mean, Joe,
No,
Chad,
but
y'all.
you got to remember, it dealt with openly homosexual characters at the time.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, so the Roman Catholic Church condemned it, and that was a large reason. It was condemned, led by the Los Angeles Archdiocese, condemned the show and asked all American families to boycott it, saying ABC should be told that American Catholics and all Americans are not going to sit by and watch the networks have open season on Catholicism and morality. Soap is probably one of the most effective arguments for government censorship of TV that has yet come along. Now we would look at it and be like, that's nothing. But
no, it was one of those that it paved the way for the Golden Girls.
Yeah. And the
but it's not as consistent. It's just not as consistently funny.
No,
and I've seen, and I'm not going to shit on it. It's not. It's one of those trailblazing shows. I mean, and it gave the start to a lot of different people. Billy Crystal was on that show.
Yep. Yeah.
But I don't know that people remember it, and I don't know if you went back and watched it in reruns, is as consistently funny as some other stuff like.
No. I mean, but I think I think again, much like with All in the Family, the cast doesn't work without the ensemble. If you just followed one or two characters, you'd be like, well, I don't care. There's something about the ensemble. I think again, it's been named one of the top 100 broadcast shows by Time Magazine and things because it did break ground. Now, that being said, by the way, I mentioned the Catholic Church. There was also a lot of the gay organizations came out against it because they said it typecast or it stereotyped what the gay lifestyle was. So they were getting attacked, quote unquote, from both ends, probably a little fairly. I mean, it was a lot of broad humor.
Right.
But that being said, it was also a show making fun of soap operas. And I wanted to talk about it, though, because I think it's an example of a sitcom that, All in the Family was rooted in reality to a certain extent, right? All the things that happened to that family could happen. Soap took that and threw it right out the door. And Susan Harris, her again, I agree. What she started with Soap led the way to things like Golden Girls, some of her other projects.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to mention Soap because I think Soap is, like you said, much like with Sanford and Son, Soap probably is largely forgotten.
All right, Chad.
Okay. So my final one. Yeah, my last one.
Oh, no.
So I talked about Night Court, which I still will argue with anybody, still holds up to this day. A lot of solid episodes, great. Married with Children. Some episodes are good. I agree with Joe. A lot of it is not transfer.
This last of it dates well. Yeah, go ahead.
And this last one, I think, is kind of forgotten. And I feel like every single episode is amazing.
Oh my God, he's going to go off on his My Three Sons kick.
No. And I want to say it's amazing up to a point, and I'm going to talk about that point. News Radio.
That was on my list.
Yeah, News Radio is a good show.
I loved News Radio. It was created by Paul Sims, and it has one of the most amazing ensemble casts I have ever seen in a TV show, period. Dave Foley, Maura Tierney, Stephen Root, Phil Hartman, Candy Alexander, Vicki Lewis, Joe Rogan, Andy Dick, and then later on, it's all about this man who goes into who gets hired to be a station manager, and he's having to wrangle all these crazy characters who work around the radio station. One of the things that I loved about it, and I read several articles about it, is the fact that the show never stops moving. If you watch it, they're constantly in motion. There's always some kind of action going on. Like, most sitcoms they stay in one spot they tell their jokes, they cut to the next spot. This one, they're moving between Dave Foley's office to the main newsroom to Stephen Root's office, and there's always some kind of action going.
Yeah.
And like I said, every episode was great for me. And I feel bad when you talk about Maura Tierney, who's a great actress, but she is literally the only straight person in that entire show.
Well, Stephen Root is one of the best character actors of all time.
He plays Jimmy James, right? It's the name of his character, Mr. James. Yeah.
And he has one of the most crazy, and again, you can see his range, because when the show first starts out, he's just this serious cut, this is how it's got to be. And then he slowly becomes this weird, goofier, rich, eccentric character as the show progresses. It's just one of those, sitcoms are always trying to either find their footing or reinvent themselves to keep the show going, to keep people interested. And Stephen Root's character arc is one of those examples. So, but yeah, the show did lose a lot of ground when, unfortunately, Phil Hartman lost his life in a very brutal fashion
to his wife,
which could possibly may or may not be
to the three of us anytime.
Yeah, except partially it might have been Andy Dick's fault. If you listen to story, there's stories that John Lovitz have you never heard John Lovitz talk about it?
No, well, John Lovitz didn't come on until after it was over.
Well, he had guest starred on the show a couple times.
He guest starred on the show. Basically, Andy Dick takes responsibility for getting Phil Hartman and eventually his wife hooked up back on cocaine.
Oh, yeah.
Which led to all of this. And then there was a scene where I'm not going to quote it because I don't remember it correctly. Look up the John Lovitz interview where he talks about it. But he met Andy Dick in a comedy club, and Andy Dick said something about how he'll kill John Lovitz like he killed Phil Hartman, and John Lovitz beat the shit out of him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Andy Dick. I lost all respect for it. I loved Andy Dick during news radio. I thought he was great, and then afterwards, he had that downfall, and then all that shit came out, and I'm like, you can't look at Andy Dick the same way.
Oddly enough, Andy Dick has one of the most interesting guest appearances on Star Trek Voyager ever.
I don't remember him being on Voyager.
He's the new upgrade emergency medical hologram when they try to send Robert Picardo's doctor hologram back to interface with the ship, and he's the new one, and he keeps saying, well, I'm not supposed to do that. That's not within my programming. And Andy Dick plays it so straight, and I'm going to follow the rules and all that stuff, that it made me go, who cast Andy Dick in this role? Like, he does a great job.
I believe Voyager was at the height of news radio, and they were trying to get some ratings all based off that.
I mean, he does a good job, but
one of my favorite episodes is with Phil Hartman, is he's trying to quit smoking. And so he just gets these nicotine patches and he starts putting them all over himself, and then he eventually has a heart attack.
One of my favorite episodes, and see if you remember this one. There's an episode where Phil Hartman's character won't go in the booth for whatever. He's going to hold out. He's going to get him to give him more money or something like that. And so they send in somebody that they think nobody will listen to is his plan. He's like, I'll send in this other person. And he sends in Joe Rogan's character. And it turns out that Joe Rogan's character, despite having no expertise, starts to draw huge ratings, and people are calling into him and talking to him all the time. Isn't that a flight of fancy? Am I a little too timely there? Okay.
No,
it's an actual episode though, right, Chad?
Yes, it's an actual episode, not a lie. And and not to go into the depressing territory, but the episode that did deal with Phil Hartman's death, is great. And I still cry. I've watched that shit. I've watched, again, it's one of those shows where I've marathoned it at least 3 times. Oh, yeah. I know that episode back to forwards and backwards, and I still cry. Even the scene where they're reading the letter from him, it tears me up. It still does. So yeah, I just wanted to mention news. James, do you have anything you want to talk about news radio since it was on your list?
No, news. I mean, it was just a show that, I knew Dave Foley from Kids in the Hall.
Yeah.
And so when he was doing a sitcom, I was like, I got to see this. And then
me and James had the same reason to watch it.
Yeah, Stephen Root, though, I loved. Matter of fact, actually, a friend of mine used to call me Jimmy James all the time because he said I reminded him of. He said when you get an idea in your head that's farcical or ludicrous, you talk about it the same way Mr. James from News Radio does. And I'm like, that's probably fair. I'd give him that. But yeah, no, I that show was another one that was so over the top, but grounded in reality at the same time. Like you could believe there was somebody that had Phil Hartman's character's identity. Yeah. Like that was just so, you could believe that these people existed. And at the same time, they could do these weird plots where you'd be like, God, that's just hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, what do you got?
All right. My last one is, I was afraid one of you would take it away from me, but I am going to stand by this statement. And
Herman's Head.
We've talked about it on the show before. It's the best spinoff of all time, and it's Frasier.
That was on my list as well. Yep.
In fact,
I'm glad you took it because that
Frasier over Cheers.
I would agree with that.
Cheers has not aged as well.
I don't think Cheers has aged as well as Frasier has. Now, there's great scenes, and I started actually about 6 months ago rewatching some of them in my office at lunch or something. I watch it Cheers or on Hulu or wherever it is. I didn't make it through a lot of them, gentlemen. But Frasier, I can just sit there and watch. Frasier has, I think, 10, if not 12 of the best damn Christmas episodes. All of them are good.
Oh well, the Thanksgiving episode, and again,
they're all good.
Do you think part of that is, and I love Kelsey Grammer, no offense meant to, but it's the ensemble cast.
Yeah,
like, Kelsey Grammer, David Hyde Pierce, Perry Gilpin, Jane Leaves, and the late great John Mahoney as his dad.
Yeah,
everyone completely cast perfectly.
Yeah. And in all fairness, much as I love that entire ensemble cast, which is right, that show would not be what it is without David Hyde Pierce.
David Hyde Pierce is the linchpin. He's absolutely correct. It works, and it's so sad that David Hyde Pierce is such a talented man who didn't skyrocket after the show. He's in a movie that I like, and I think
Perfect Host.
Yeah,
The Perfect Host. I love The Perfect Host.
Really good movie. If you guys have never heard of that, go check it out.
You should do that as a Scarefest movie review.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, I probably should. I don't even know if you can find it streaming. I'm sure you can.
No, it's streaming.
Basically, Frasier leaves, goes back to his hometown of Seattle, and hosts an on-air talk show.
He starts a cow farm.
Actually, it's one of my greatest. And it's so funny because I love the fact that they're rebuilding Frasier because they have to acknowledge what he said while he's in Cheers, right? And there's it's one of the throwaway lines if you didn't watch Cheers, but there's an episode of Cheers where Sam asked Frasier about his family, and he goes, "Well, my dad's dead, and I don't have any siblings, all that stuff." And so when Ted Danson guested, or maybe it's Woody, when one of the cast of Cheers guested in, he said, "I thought you said your dad was dead," and he goes, "We were fighting at the time." I mean, it's a throwaway line, but if you know the backstory, it was, "Oh God, we wrote ourselves into a corner," and so they do a throwaway line to address it.
I know that there's other shows that are spinoffs that people will like. Hell, I've done, you've talked about a couple on here, but
he just talked about Soap, and there's Benson.
I just don't know.
But I don't think people remember Benson or Soap. I mean, I love Benson. No. I love Benson too, but I don't think they're remembered the way Frasier and Cheers are.
Frasier and Cheers, and I think Frasier is better than Cheers. And in several lists, Cheers is ranked higher, and I understand why. It was a cultural phenomenon. And and by the way, Cheers has the best ensemble cast, but as far as a show that I can enjoy that has aged better, it's Frasier.
Well, and do you think other than Frasier, maybe the Jeffersons, as far as a spinoff holding the same?
Because I don't think the Jeffersons is as good as Frasier.
No, but I'm saying within spinoff shows.
Yeah.
Of sitcoms, you've got, because I mean, Married with Children had a spinoff show nobody remembers. It started somebody that went on to do Friends.
Yeah.
But I mean, you get what, Sanford? You get the Jeffersons and Frasier, and are there any other ones that held that same fan base and added on to it?
No, I just love the only mistake they made with Frasier was they moved it in.
Family Matters.
Like I said, Perfect Strangers.
Perfect Strangers.
Right?
Oh God. Oh, why did I not? Okay.
I mean, I'm not going to argue with you, but I think
I just forgot about
Family Matters more than they would the original But I stand by Frasier. Is that they moved it to replace Seinfeld when Seinfeld ended, and it didn't belong there. It's not that show.
No, it's not. Yeah.
It's not for everyone. But other than that, I think Frasier is one of the best. All right, James, your last. Go.
I've got to do one more ensemble. I'm glad you did Frasier because I was like, God, I got to mention Frasier, but you took that one off me. So I'm going to talk about one that I've been rewatching because I love an actor in it, and I loved the movie about that actor. I was like, I need to go back and rewatch this show. And again, does not work without the ensemble. It seems like most of mine, I've been going back to that. That's Taxi. There's parts that
has a lot of good scenes, but that's another one that I think people are forgetting about.
But yeah, no, and I agree. But Taxi is, and maybe I like the sitcoms that do tackle the stuff that happens, because if you watch Taxi now, Taxi is dealing with, there's episodes that talk about drug addiction and single parenthood, blindness, obesity. And I love Andy Kaufman. Andy Kaufman plays like and so he's going to get deported because he doesn't actually have a visa. There's sexual harassment episodes. There's all of that stuff. And oddly enough, stars a young Danny DeVito, who doesn't even look young. But Judd Hirsch, I guess, was really the star. You had Jeff Conaway for a while. Matter of fact, go ahead, Chad. Sorry.
You mentioned sexual harassment. You remember that episode of Night Court where they were trying to get Marky Post's characters. They were trying to get him accused of sexual harassment. They put the die on the envelope. And then it turned out they gave the wrong envelope, and Dan got it. And then he came out, and there was like fingerprints on all these girls' butts.
No, I don't remember that exactly.
Oh, good times were had by all.
Classic.
So
Christopher Lloyd
is in it. Eventually, Carol Kane joins the cast. Tony Danza, matter of fact.
Carol Kane wasn't on from the beginning. I thought she was on from the beginning.
No, she didn't join.
That's a hell of a cast, by the way.
God, it
all
is.
All those people went on to.
Amazing.
Mary Lou Henner is in it.
Mary Lou Henner, yeah.
Tony Danza, the useless trivia, the cab in the beginning that's in the credits is driven by Tony Danza. It's actually driven by Tony Danza. They actually had him drive it to film the credits.
And then he got cancer from being a baseball pitcher.
Yeah, I don't think baseball pitching causes cancer, Chad, but he did do a movie where that was a plot. But yeah, no. So one of the things I like about it is you do have this kind of back and forth, and it's these taxi drivers. Most of the film is set in the hub where they get dispatched from. But it really is about how very different, how work brings together different people, because Judd Hirsch is, he has a child that he's separated from, and this back and forth that kind of goes with that. But then you also have Jeff Conaway's character is, this wannabe actor. And there's a great episode where he's coming up on 30. And he said, I promised myself if I wasn't an actor by the time I'm 30, I'd quit. And he gets one last audition, and he's waiting for the call. And they all go over to his house because he knows he's going to get this call. He knows he's going to get this call. And Judd Hirsch, there's this great scene between them where Judd Hirsch says, listen, maybe it's just not going to work out for you. Maybe you just need to own the fact that you're not an actor. And he goes off on Judge Hirsch and says, I don't need a friend that doesn't believe in me. I don't need a friend and all that stuff. And you know how I know that I'm a good actor? And Judd Hirsch is like, I'm sorry, I'll leave. I didn't mean to start anything. He goes, no, I'm just making this stuff up as I go along. That's how I know I'm a good actor. He goes, I don't want you to leave. I just wanted to show you that I could do this. By the way, he doesn't get the part. And it ends with him going, well, maybe I'll give it another 10 years. But it's really about these people that are drawn together by work. They have nothing in common, but they end up bumping off of one another and becoming friends, and sometimes not so friendly. And of course, Danny DeVito plays a sexist, negative, angry cab dispatcher that has to send them all out. And he's kind of a con artist, but there's times when he has a heart of gold too. The episode where they come to deport Andy Kaufman's character, he steps out and he goes, I don't know who you're talking about. We don't have anybody like that around here. And he tries to help hide him and all of that stuff. There's a lot of great just episodes of that show. But I agree with Joe. It's one that a lot of people don't talk about anymore. And it's kind of, we've mentioned Barney Miller before, but to me, it's in that same category as Barney Miller.
Yeah.
The writing was really strong. Once you start watching the show, you identify with these characters. You want to know what's going to happen to them. Barney Miller always gave me that feeling too. But Taxi, it's one of those shows that switched networks before it got canceled. But yeah, if you haven't seen Taxi in a while, I've been just watching them here and there when I get a chance. Taxi is a fascinating show and a time capsule of its time.
All right. So some honorable mentions, if you guys don't mind, I'll go first.
Yeah, go.
One that it was never a huge hit. It's always the top 20. And I didn't really watch it till I was on paternity leave. And it just because of how it fell and on Comedy Central. And I actually can't stand Zach Braff, but I really liked Scrubs. I really enjoyed it. And for the most part, the reason I like Scrubs was because of everybody else in the cast other than the main star. And especially John C. McGinley.
Oh, yeah.
Who, by the way, will be at there's 3 people I'm really excited about interviewing at Lexington Comic-Con, but is one of them. And I was just told the other day that he's a talker. I can't wait.
Oh, John C. McGinley. What podcast was he on? Chad, was it?
He's been on several.
It was Kevin Pollak.
Kevin Pollak. His conversation about working with Sean Connery, it's burned in my head. I loved hearing him talk.
Oh,
about
we're
that.
all down here. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, he does 2 takes.
Okay, the other 2, and this is the one where I left it. I mean, I love Andy Griffith. We've talked about it enough on here. One that isn't traditional, but all 6 episodes are brilliant. It only lasted 6 episodes. Police Squad.
It was on my honorable mention list. I'm glad you
Police Squad is people think of Serenity and they think of they think of Firefly as a failed show that went into a movie. Police Squad did it first.
Yep.
Right. I mean, nobody remembers that. And I just wanted to say that. Barney Miller. And one that I fell in love with, and this is something recent. I guess it's not a sitcom. It's on a lot of lists, but I saw it on lists, but I don't know that I think it was a sitcom. It's Fleabag.
So because I didn't even put it on my list, but it's been mentioned, God, I love Perfect Strangers.
Really? So I never watched it. I doubt that I've ever seen more than 2 or 3 episodes.
Oh man, I loved it. The comedy between the 2 of them, Bronson Pinchot and why am I blanking on the guy's name? My favorite
Cousin Larry. His name was Cousin Larry.
Yeah. It was great. And it also has one of the best theme songs of all time too. No, I love Perfect Strangers. Mark Lynn Baker. God, Bronson Pinchot and Mark Lynn Baker. I love that one. A few shout outs to lesser known shows. Platypus Man.
I don't know that I ever watched it.
I loved it when it was on. It was on the fledgling UPN network.
Mm-hmm.
It came on right before Voyager. Richard Jenna, who was an amazing comedian,
was one of the most. I'm afraid he will not be remembered.
No, he's already not
one of
remembered.
The best stand-up comedians of all time.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen it, you could probably YouTube several of the Platypus Man's episodes. It was a great show that just didn't make it because it was on a fledgling network that didn't have a lot of stuff to put out there. And also Richard Jenna sadly passed away badly. And then a shout out to one that nobody remembers. And I am sure absolutely 100% positive that it is terrible and unwatchable. It only lasted 11 episodes in 1992. Whoops.
No idea what the hell that is.
You got me, Chad. You got me.
Quick question. How would you spell whoops?
WHOOPS.
This show was so terrible, it's spelled whoops wrong. WOOPS exclamation mark. It is about 6 people.
It sounds like somebody picked a bouquet of whoops and daisies.
That's just whoops.
It is about 6 people who survived a nuclear apocalypse and are now forced to live together to repopulate the species. It is terrible. There's one episode, like I think the opening episode, they're getting attacked by a giant spider, and it is one of the most shitty looking effects ever, especially for a 1992 sitcom. Just had to mention it. YouTube whoops, people. Remember, spelled incorrectly, WOOPS.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
A couple honorable, well, a few, several honorable mentions for me. Get Smart. I've got to mention.
Yeah.
Mel
Yep.
Brooks, Buck Henry.
Nothing
just
quite like it.
Yeah. Another one that there was nothing quite like that I loved as a kid, and I need to go back and watch now. It's the Gary Shandling Show. I love the theme song. I loved everything about it. The episode that I remember, because my dad hated that show. There's an episode I remember we were decorating the Christmas tree, and he's supposed to be being chased by this helicopter, and you can honestly see it's a toy helicopter somebody's holding, and you see the hand reach up and spin the blade as he moves it on the screen. I don't know why I thought it was hilarious then. I still think stuff like that's funny. We've mentioned things like Maude, but I wanted to mention one that I think has been completely forgotten that a lot of people still identify with or they'll love because it is very much of its time. And that is Sledgehammer.
Yeah, I wish
Yeah.
we could get the writer on the show, the creator. We're friends on social media, but I have tried for 2 years.
Sledgehammer was basically a send up of Reagan style conservatism and Dirty Harry and shows like Miami Vice and Dallas and all that stuff.
That's another one no one remembers.
But the other one I want to mention, I mentioned creators a couple times: Susan Harris, Norman Lear, Chuck Lorre. I want to mention probably one of the unluckiest people, and as far as the shows didn't last too long, but these shows were phenomenally funny because they were so absurd. Victor Fresco. Victor Fresco created 2 shows. I have one of them, the complete series on DVD. That would be Andy Richter Controls the Universe. And if you've never seen that show, Andy Richter plays, well, Andy. Most people know Andy Richter as Conan O'Brien's sidekick. But in this show, he works for this company. It's kind of set up to be like Mary Tyler Moore-ish, except everything is absurd. Like he at one episode, he wears a suit made out of puppies, not puppy fur. There's got tons of coats in it or pockets in it. And he puts puppies in it because they won't fire somebody covered in puppies. He talks to the ghost of the person who started the company, the founder of the company. So that's the show that he created in 2002, 2003. Has a cult following still to this day. Like I said, I own it on DVD. The show he created to end the decade also has a cult following, but didn't last more than I think 2 seasons. And Joe, you know that one. It's Better Off Ted.
Better Off Ted was a fantastic show. I'm glad you mentioned it. I forgot about it when I was putting my list together.
Victor Fresco created both of those shows, and they are hilarious.
Chad, have you ever watched Better Off Ted?
Yeah, I've watched a few episodes. I liked it.
Oh my God, there's a scene.
It's no whoops.
There's a scene I can still remember where they were talking about this. Oh shit, I can't remember the AI toaster that they did. That just started screaming when they got it hot. Shut up, stupid toaster! Just toast my toast. I mean, it's just. I love that show.
And by the way, Andy Richter Controls the Universe was one of the first network shows to turn its back on the laugh track. It has no laugh track either. If you don't find it funny, nobody's going to tell you when to laugh. So Victor Fresco is I think a phenomenal talent who did shows that a lot of people loved but never caught on, and those both only lasted. Did Better Off Ted last 2 seasons?
I think it lasted like a season and a half. I don't even think there's 2 full seasons.
I was going to say Andy Richter Controls the Universe lasted 1 season, and there's episodes of that I just roll. They're hilarious. So both of those are short-lived sitcoms. I think, I don't know if you can find Better Off Ted somewhere, but Andy Richter Controls the Universe, I know, is on DVD. Those are my honorable mentions because I love the absurd stuff. I love ensemble casts, and those are the ones that come to mind.
All right, guys. Anybody else got anything?
Missed it by that much.
That much.
The Job. We've talked about The Job on here a lot. Though.
I know. I was waiting for you to actually say The Job, but I'm like, I won't mention it. We'll see what he does.
No, I didn't even think about it till then. I was like, I forgot about The Job. The Job, yeah. All right, guys. This has been Bonehead Weekly. If you have complaints or concerns, you can just talk to us. We're really accessible.
The Job, by the way, for those that didn't get to see it, was the working of the Wonder Years. I do cocaine.
This has been Bonehead Weekly.